This episode of Fresh and Buds is brought to you by the Brodex of Himmersha. This is for all the bros and hims out there in the region of Wraith. Now, I know what you're thinking, and you're probably right to think so. It sounds very toxic, a lot of toxic masculinity. And you're right, it is. It's actually not that great. Listen, we're struggling here at Fresh and Buds. This came across my desk, and I took the ad. I took it. Hopefully, we don't have to do it next week. Now, I will say this. In defense of the Brodex of Himmersha, it's not quite as toxic as the Brodex of Frailty, but it is way more toxic than the Brodex of Bloodrot. Now, it is what it is. Hopefully they don't come back. Please, I would say, actually, maybe don't even buy the Brodex of Himmersha. Unless you really, maybe out of curiosity, I guess. They told me to say that. So, hopefully they don't come back next week. But hey, listen, we got a great show for you, and it's going to happen right now.
Fresh and
All right, welcome back to yet another episode of Fresh and Buds. And yes, I am Tommy Fresh, and yes, you are all my buds. And yes, we are joined by Kale from DeadSummerArt once again to kind of go over some lore. We have a new set coming in, 2 weeks? By the time this is out, we have seen most, if not all, the cards because they bumped spoiler season back a day because the Queenstown celebration's happening right now. Everybody's having a blast over there. And I think that, wow, I can't believe all the things that we've seen so far, right, Kale? That's been crazy. We are recording this on Monday.
Especially that one card that just completely changes the way everyone plays every single deck.
Yeah, it's weird. So it's warping and almost concerning, but also...
And you can have 20 copies of it in your deck. That's wild. I would have thought.
That's crazy. Things are wild. We obviously are very knowledgeable about what's going on with heavy hitters right now, but... we do have a great episode for you today. This is a set that didn't give us a lot of lore articles or anything. So we're just going to be working on context clues and kind of just, feeling it out and kind of drawing our own conclusions. And hopefully we get some more lore down the line. But, hey, we got to do what we got to do. So before we get to that, I do want to shout out the different ways you can help support the show. The best ways to help the show is, to hop on YouTube, give us a like, comment, and subscribe, as well as check out the Buds Discord, the Twitter, all of that stuff. It's all great ways to support the show without ever spending a dime, which is really nice. And also, if you want to spend a dime, the Patreon will be back up and running in February. I am working on a way to make the most sense for me and the Buds out there. So, with that being said, check that all out. It's in the show notes below in the Linktree. And guess what? We got a great episode because, Kale, you've become one of my best buddies in this game, in regular life as well, and over the past 3 years at this point. And it's pretty crazy that, we've been able to do this kind of episode every set for a long time now. What's going on? How you doing, buddy?
Yeah. It's a new year, 2024. A lot of things. I've set goals for what I want to do this year, both personally and for content creation wise. I've just been a whirlwind of motivation and just stuff's changing. Stuff's changing for me for the better, which is good because I felt very stagnant for a long time, and I'm like, nah, this is it. I'm putting my foot down. Let's do it. So. Yeah,
that's the way to do it. I don't know. I've felt stagnant in my life and in content creation sometimes too, where you just kind of be like, all right, I got to throw something at the wall and hopefully it sticks. If it doesn't, I'll just do it again. And hopefully we yield positive results. And I'm glad that it's doing that for you. Now, let's talk about the last time we talked. So
yes,
for those of you who don't know, and I would encourage people to go back and listen to the episode. I don't remember what number it was, but it was around when Bright Lights. I keep almost calling that set Everfest because of the EVO.
Yeah.
It's very confusing.
It's one letter off.
Yeah, one letter off. But you had a spoiler that was unlike any other spoiler we had seen based on the card text and also the way that it was being revealed. It was being revealed after spoiler season, after the box openings. And at the time, we recognized the risk of that. Alex recognized the risk of that as well. But it still was a very cool reveal, and I was very happy to be a part of it. Just a little bit. I had reached out to you. I said I didn't get a spoiler this time. I'd love to get involved somehow. And I did some voice work, and that was a lot of fun. And unfortunately, Kale, it got opened in the box opening. The card was Slay. It was the one that kills an angel, and it was the expansion slot card.
Yep.
And somehow, against all odds, it was open. But we knew the risk. But I looked back while I was writing up the show notes. Still got 1,000 views, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I gotta ask, like, how did it feel when? I mean, it couldn't have felt good. And do you think the risk was worth it?
The risk was calculated, but man, I'm bad at maths. I mean, I talked to Alex and I was like, okay, what are the actual chances? And he's like, oh, it's expansion slot. It's majestic. Like, how many expansion slot cards do you get per box? Like 2 on average? Something like that. And there was quite a few cards. And I'm like, 2 boxes being open. That's like 4 out of the, 12 odd cards or something that are in the expansion slot. And I was like, look, if it doesn't work out, so be it. But if it does work out and nobody sees it coming, it will be amazing. Because, like, I had barely talked about it pretty much at all on, like, my social media. I didn't tell anyone I had a spoiler card. I had a couple people be like, yo, are you getting on this set? And I was like, shh. But I didn't really advertise it. All I did was put up like a little teaser of the Mendacity radio hub, like loading screen thing, and didn't say anything else about it. But yeah, I woke up on the day that the box breaks were starting, because it was going to be like, I think the first one started at like 8 a.m. for me, something like that. So I woke up and I go to tune in. And just before I tune in, I'm like, oh, let me check the Discord and look at what cards have been spoiled. And I see people sharing my card. And I'm like, no, when did this get pulled? And I just type in the chat. I'm like, oh my God, that was my spoiler card. It was meant to be a surprise. And Alex sent me an email and he's like, it's been spoiled. Just post your video. And I was like, oh, damn it. I'm about to go to work and I got to get ready and I like being around when my spoiler video goes live so I can chat to people and like hype it. So I was like, oh, I'm going to have to delay it now until like nighttime. And then I posted the time in which I was going to show it, but I got the time mixed up. So, because I was trying to convert for American time zones and I was like, oh, this is a nightmare. It's all falling apart. But everyone, like, I don't know, the community's just always they've always had my back. And those that like my content love my content. Like, I don't think who's a fan of my content isn't like 100% on board. That's what it feels like. Because like everyone was just like sharing my video. They were liking it, commenting on it. And yeah, it got over 1,000 views, which is like the standard that I kind of set myself for a spoiler video. So bit of a bummer overall, but I was really proud of the video. Had you do amazing voice work. That was awesome to have you on that project. And then I also had Catherine Tripp, who is the partner of Dan, who's 1/3 of Push the Point. I reached out to Dan and I was like, hey, your wife did the voice for Vinset for an official video for LSS. Could I hire her to do some voices for my video? And she was like 100% on board. Awesome to work with. And she hit it out the park, and the video overall was just really awesome. So yeah, I guess in a way it worked out in the end, but it could have been better, but it could have been a lot worse. So I'll take it. I'll take it.
Well, it is a real testament to what you mean to the community, and I know how much you mean, and like how much people love your content based on like every time that you come on the show, the buds get excited. They have all these excellent questions, and they always tell me that these are the episodes they look forward to the most. So, it's really awesome that, and, everybody involved and who knew you and knew what happened was like, hey, listen, just like go watch this video. Who cares if we know what the card is? It still gives context to what the card is and why is this in the set and stuff like that. And you created this story that perhaps wouldn't be there otherwise. And I think that's why it was still so successful. And yeah, it was risky. Yeah. So like the floor was pretty low, but like, we saw what the floor was and it actually wasn't as low as you might think, right? People still rallied around it. The ceiling was very high, right? Like all of a sudden you get to do this really like cool thing. And the video was really awesome. And like, I remember being like super bummed. I was like, man, like that was such a good reveal, but I think that people still really loved it. And, that's the beautiful thing about YouTube too. You did it as a premiere, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, doesn't matter. Like people like have to sit there and tune in, right? And like kind of go through the journey with you, which was really cool. And I was in the chat too, and people were like, "Oh, this is awesome. This is really sweet." So, sucks it happened, but also still so cool. And I would love to see another reveal like that from you down the road. Maybe no box openings that time.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the video itself was very different to my usual stuff. I really tried to incorporate a card that has nothing to do with metrics into a set all about only metrics. And I think I did that pretty well. So I was pretty happy with that. And then unfortunately one bad thing kind of led into another. I talked about applying to be a creative writer at LSS, and I actually got really deep into the application process. But unfortunately, I didn't make the final cut, so that was also like another blow after having my spoiler kind of ruined. So end of 2023 was kind of a bummer for me, but it really lit a fire underneath me, and I'm like, I'm gonna get it this year. This year's gonna be my year. So yeah.
Well, I gotta say, I mean, as somebody who is very familiar with interview processes lately, and sometimes it really sucks when you don't get it, but like it's great practice, and like I don't think it shuts the door on those opportunities, like maybe down the road, and like you just go back there and kind of hit the books or whatever, or just start writing more and practicing and kind of getting out there and just feeling it out. So I think that's as much of a bummer it is. It sounds like that you can turn it into a positive, which we obviously love over here at Fresh and Buds. Negatives into positives. Ones on scab skins to sixes on scab skins. So, but now I got to ask, when you saw Slay, that was such a unique card, right? Destroy target angel. That's what it says, right? And also center text, right?
Yes.
Which was kind of interesting. What did you think when you saw such a niche card?
I really sat and stewed on it. I was like, it's good, but only in very specific situations that I don't think come up enough to really warrant you using the card. Like, I don't even think it's a sideboard card, just because angels. I mean, we've seen Brian Gottlieb talk about how great he thought the new Prism was, and how the community has really not taken to the new Prism in the same way that he thought it would be prevalent. So that card, I think, was a fail-safe in case the new Prism just like ran rampant and they needed something to help kind of pull it back a little bit, but it didn't end up needing it. So it's better to have a life jacket on, even if you don't fall out the boat.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
But it's funny because it has flavor text on it that's a specific quote from Vincent, yet Vincent is the last of the 3 heroes that can currently use it that would use it, just because with Vincent you just make a rune chant unblockable and it pops all the wards on all the angels without having to take up a card in your deck. So Yeah, the hero that would use it the most would be Leviah. But
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, when I saw it and you revealed it to me on the last time you were on the show, I was like, it's so interesting. We know, like you said, Brian had been talking about how great Prism is, and then it didn't turn out to be so. Now, Prism is going to get a new tool in heavy hitters, the new Numenaris, the third edition of Luminaris.
Electric Boogaloo.
Electric Boogaloo. Slay could all of a sudden be a real card. Or at least for Leviah. So, we will say. I mean, Leviah is looking to be one of the better heroes going forward. So you just never know. But it's so cool to get such unique cards. You've gotten quite a few at this point. Morlock Hill being the other one. Now, that one, you didn't even... I mean, we talked about it. It's like, how useful is this? And then it turned out to be somewhat useful in Blitz. Maybe not so much anymore since Kano's not around. But...
Kasai's gone.
Yeah, Kasai's gone. So yeah, it's fun that they're like, oh, we have a weird card. Let's give it to Kale. So maybe there was just not enough weird cards in this set, and they're waiting for a good one.
I've never cared about how good the card is. I just want it to be very flavorful and yeah. Morlock Hill and Slay were like on point. So
they were just knocked out of the park. Now, you this time around for heavy hitters, you did reach out to me. You were unfortunately not included in this spoiler season.
Yep.
But that doesn't mean you won't be included in future ones. But you reached out to me. He's like, hey, same business as last time, except the tables are turned. He's like, hey, I don't have a spoiler. Love to get involved. So I was like, yeah, well, absolutely. I'd love you to get involved. So I wrote up a script and I sent it to you, and you did some voice work. And as of now, the spoiler has already happened. And tomorrow it comes out from when we're recording. On Tuesday, this comes out on Thursday. Time is weird. But I'm going to show Kale the video right now. And I'm going to have him live react, or not live. We're going to get his reaction afterwards. I'm going to cut so he can watch it. And then we're going to go back to the show, just like we did with Slay. And I want to see what Kale thinks. Are you ready?
I'm curious. Yeah, I'm ready. Let's go.
All right, let's do it. Well, there it is, Kale. What'd you think?
Assault and battery. That was a sick video. Yeah, I really loved it. I love the paying of homage to Monty Python, which is obviously where I tried to get inspiration for the voiceover that I did. As for the card, for a common, that is really good. That is a solid card, which is pretty much exactly what you want from a common. Like, you're not expecting it to define your deck or to break formats. You just need something that's reliable, and like 3 for 7, 6 or 5 is just like really good. Beat chess, you can choose the card you discard, and then I mean, yeah, if you've beaten chess, get an agility token, you don't have to roll on your scab skins next turn. So you're getting those action points. Because agility tokens break, and then your next attack gets again, right?
They're fixed quickens, basically. So,
yeah,
we got a lot of that this set, like might and agility pop at the beginning of the turn, so that you have to like get the value out of them if possible. So yeah, so it was Assault and Battery. If people hadn't seen it at this point, but it's a 3 for 7 at red. It's a common. Has beat chess, which we've seen at this point, where you may discard a card with 6 or more. And if you have beaten chess this turn, so you don't have to beat chess with this card, you create an agility token. So, it's a great setup card. It comes in all 3 colors, red, yellow, blue. So KO gets another blue 6. And it blocks for 3, which is, we love to see us brute players.
That's what it's wanted.
Yeah, it's like, I know we always like complain about no blue 6s, and we kind of got them, but I think that the real problem is like all of the better cards that we got were just like didn't block. So, thank you for being a part of it. That was like a lot of fun.
Awesome.
And
yeah.
And if you have any notes, send them to my my people. So
yeah, I'm just like thinking about uses for this card. Like if you're playing Rhinar, you play this, you beat chest, you discard a Massacre, you intimidate twice, once from the Massacre, once from Rhinar. You swing for
Actually,
7.
oh
and
yeah,
then
Masker does work.
if
But
it's discarded to pay the cost of a brute
yeah,
attack
yeah.
action.
There are some ones that care about being random, like Skullcrack does not work with Beat Chest, which would have been awesome, but maybe too good.
Probably for the better.
Yeah, but Beast Within does not care. Beast Within is like stonks right now. Like you just get to replace that card. So yeah, the intimidate factor on Rhinar is insane.
Yeah. It's a very good card. I'm assuming that there's probably a cycle of these brute cards where if you've beaten chess, create a might token. If you've beaten chess, create a
Vigor.
Vigor. Yeah. Create a vigor token. So solid cards.
Yeah, we will see. I mean, technically right now most people know exactly what's out there, but
I mean, we do too, of course.
Oh, yes, we're in the future. So yeah, no, it was a lot of fun to make, and obviously you added such because I edited all the other stuff and then did your voiceover part, and like I'm so glad I did the voiceover part because I'm like, yeah, this is like fun and like it's a lot of like visual storytelling, but I need some actual storytelling. And like you really brought that and added that extra silly element that I was looking for. I just was like, you know what? The last spoiler video I did, it was for Dusk Till Dawn, and it wasn't like totally serious, but like a lot darker and kind of
very metal.
Yeah, very metal and stuff like that. And I wanted something, heavy hitters. Like it's all about like heroes like fighting in an arena and like being wild and rolling dice and wagering. It's like let's go silly. So it was a lot of fun. And that song, the metal, like the kind of metal song, I performed that. That's a Tommy Fresh original.
Really?
Yeah, all on acoustic guitar, if you could believe it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That actually brings me to a question I've just been meaning to ask you, but I never did. The origins of the Fresh and Bud's intro song. Where did that come from, and what made you decide to do it very distorted, like the bow, wow, bow, bow,
I don't know. I mean, I love acoustic music. I play a lot of my acoustic guitar, but like I do love like kind of distorted. Like I don't know if you know the band Royal Blood. I kind of love what they do. I'm a big Queens of the Stone Age fan. Like a lot of like distorted bass and guitar, and I was just messing around with like GarageBand, just recording my guitar, and I like played around with some filters, and I was like, oh, I can make this kind of sound like an electric guitar. So that's what I did. And that was that basically the same process for the Fresh and Buds intro and the song that I threw in this video. So it was nice to flex that muscle a little bit, it's like, because I played a lot of music in high school, and it's like you get old and become an adult, and you're just like, it's like, yeah, I want to play more, but I don't have any time, and this was a great excuse. But thank you for your contribution. If anybody hasn't watched the video, please go watch the video. LSS loves when people watch those videos, and I think like 3 of them might make the main page for them. They're doing like some kind of contest, so I don't know if mine's good enough, but it's definitely silly, so maybe they'll appreciate that. So
it's a good time.
Absolutely. So let's get on with the rest of the show, Kale. Fresh faves, Bright Lights. Last time we talked, it wasn't fully out. We saw a lot of the cards, but we hadn't seen all of them. Who was your favorite hero from Bright Lights?
Man, Bright Lights feels like it was forever ago, but it wasn't that long ago. Favorite hero, I had been debating. Obviously, there are many choices from Bright Lights. I think I'll lock in my top pick as Dash.io. I got to play her in the pre-release, and it was a really fun time. Just like looking at the top of my deck, I was doing it almost like a fidget toy. Just like, wait, what was on top again? Oh yeah. Oh wait. No, wait, yep. And just like keep looking back at the card, making sure I'm reading it right. I'm sure a lot of people do that with their arsenal, like, oh, what's in my arsenal again? But just the ability to like play stuff off the top of your deck, like the combo potential just really speaks to me as a player, because I'm very much of the Johnny mindset where it's like come up with some wacky combo and then when you pull it off you just feel amazing. And the story as well with Dash IO, like the next evolution of our favorite mechanologist. And the story that she's kind of found herself in now with Data Doll sort of coming along for the ride. She has Data Doll sort of with her microprocessor, which is really cool. And her new design was just like a good representation of where Metrics is in the current storyline. It's gone from looking very steampunk style Dash to cyberpunk Dash, and that's just really cool. I love the addition of like all these like screens in front of her and whatnot. So second place to Dash was Max, just because, you know, he's the essence of a cyberpunk.
Yeah.
Which is really cool, and I like the fact that he can create hyperdrivers, and his game plan can work really well with the Nitro Mechanoid. Teklo Vossen, gameplay wise, didn't really speak to me too much. I think his story is quite interesting. I want to know what's going on with him dying but faking his own death. What's the reason for that? Teklo Industries has got some secrets that they're hiding, which I want to know what they are. So, but yeah, Dash definitely takes top spot, I think.
Yeah, it is kind of cool with the design and how it relates to the lore, right? You know, original Dash, inventor extraordinaire, just like throwing out items, like gets to start with one, and then yeah, Dash.io still cares about items, but like is almost pulling them from the cloud, your DAC.
Yeah,
which is
that's a good way to explain it.
Yeah. So like it really kind of shows how much she advanced in a way, and maybe, and I mean this might be crazy, but it would kind of make sense. The third iteration of Dash is bringing them from like your inventory or something like that. So,
oh man,
yeah,
that'd be wild.
Yeah, I mean, it would kind of make sense. Like she's like ascended, so she could bring items from anywhere. But great answer. What was your favorite weapon? We only had 3. Just like
it's got to be Banksy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, who doesn't love Banksy? It's a wrench. You just smack him with a wrench. And initially, when I looked at it, I thought it was much smaller than it actually is, but it's actually quite large if you actually like look at the artwork for Max.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not like a huge fan or anything, but I'm a fan of Banksy's work. I love his very like anti-corporation, anti-capitalism, like commentary on the world and just the state of things. And he's just this elusive figure that just appears out of nowhere and does artwork, and then nobody knows who he is, and then he's destroying his own artwork at auction, which is so bizarre. You know, I think the name of the weapon and the connection it has to like Max and Banksy, the actual real person, is just very poetic, and it just fits very well together flavor wise. So I don't think they could have chosen a better name for the wrench.
Yeah, well, and you know, we got the old Crank and Bank, which is just an awesome. It's just like the best thing to say when you're playing Max, but it is such a like awesome way to say this is what Max is all about. Like, there's no mistaking where Max's head's at, right?
Yeah.
He's like chaos, hates the man, and wants to break things. And he's got a big old wrench, and you got to deal with it, which is why I was drawn to Max especially. Now, what was your favorite equipment? We had a lot of Evos. We had regular equipment as well. What was your favorite?
You know, I love the funky cards, adaptive plating.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
that
good.
is just, yeah, like it's deceptively good, because if you're playing a deck that cares about galvanizing to any extent, or like chucking items in the graveyard, it blocks for 3 in any slot you want, which is like crazy, because mechanologists typically for a long time didn't really have like arm pieces that were that good. They have some now, but like adaptive plating could easily work in there. You could run 3 adaptive plating, which is like really wild. So you can kind of go tank without using Evo. And it has like a keyword on it, modular, that we've never seen before, and you can move it from one slot to another, which like there's like maybe one edge case that you could probably think of where that would be relevant at the moment, but the design space that's there potentially is just so many different things. Like you could have a hero that says whenever you equip uh something into a like a slot, like an equipment slot, you gain some benefit, and you could just start moving this piece back and forth between slots and gain something, or maybe a weapon that cares about that. Like we don't know, but the possibilities is what excites me with that card. And plus the artwork is very was it Da Vinci?
Da Vinci,
Is
yeah.
Da Vinci that did the man? I forgot what it's called. The like blueprint of a man design. It's just really cool, and they chucked that artwork on a playmat, which is just awesome. I love the blueprint design. It's just a very cool card. So
It's so cool, and the big question about it is like, why can it move, right? You know, like I
Yeah.
guess there's some unique cases. I think with Fabricate, I think was the card that maybe
Fabricate's the one that comes to mind, where you lose a piece and then your modular thing is like in the slot that you need your new proto piece to go into, so you like move it out and then get a proto piece in using Fabricate or something like that. It's a
Yeah.
very edge case, but yeah, just cool that it exists.
But it could be, you know, a hint towards the third dash, right? You know, all of a sudden, like,
Yeah.
your inventory gets a lot more play. So maybe we're onto something here, Kale. And now, finally, what's your favorite run-of-the-mill card? Non-attack action, attack action, item, card you put in your deck?
Big Bertha, and I will not be taking any questions.
Hey, I'm right there with you. Card's
No,
awesome.
it's a good card. It's very solid stat line, especially for a common. Can help put counters back on your hyperdriver. And I mean, look at the artwork. Big Bertha.
Yeah.
Need I say more? That's just really cool. I just love that card. I mean, I could have gone the boring answer and said Boom Grenade, but I mean, Big Bertha, come on.
Big Bertha. And the art is still the steampunky thing, you know.
Yeah.
That is it stands out in the set in terms of like still having that old metrics feel, which is pretty cool. Now we're done with metrics, Kale. We're done.
Yep. No more.
We're on to the deathmatch arena. Heavy Hitters is right around the corner. I gotta say, I am super excited for this set. I was excited to have you on to get your thoughts. We don't know a lot about what's going on here, right? We just know that there's this arena, Coliseum style, where people are wagering, and we got these kind of gladiators going back and forth, brutes, guardians, warriors. I mean, I guess any kind of class could really do it, but this seems like the most evenly matched. No arcane damage flying around. No need for arcane barrier or anything like that. So it's very interesting. I want to know, what do we know about this arena so far?
So I did some digging and tried to put pieces together. So from what we can tell, this arena lies somewhere between Solana Volcor and the Savage Lands. The exact position could be debated, but it seems like it needs to be in a position where people that aren't savages from the Savage Lands can still access it. So if it was knee deep in the Savage Lands, probably a bit hard for someone from Volcor, like Kasai or Victor from the Northern Realms in Solana to make their way. It appears that there is some sort of town or city or settlement that surrounds the arena itself. So it's not just purely an arena. It has to an extent, thriving society that's built around it and the commerce that the arena brings. In Olympia's lore, when I went and looked at it, it said that he came from the moat or moats. I don't know if it was plural or not. The moat of the deathmatch arena. Whether or not that's a literal moat, like he's in water, or if that's what they call the surrounding town that kind of acts as defense, like a moat would. Yeah, there's some sort of settlement going on. We see a lot of this with Betsy cards. Betsy also grew up in the shadow of the deathmatch arena, is what her lore says. But yeah, there's not too much about the arena itself that they've really explained. We know that there's a lot of betting, a lot of fights. It seems open to pretty much anyone that wants to compete. And it seems like it's not just fights that occur, but also tests of agility and strength, We've seen that in card artwork where people are doing like obstacle courses.
Yeah.
This really seems like the Roman Colosseum in a way, where I mean everyone's heard of the stories. I don't know how true it is, but apparently they flooded the Colosseum in Rome and had naval battles. And I could totally see something like that happening with the Deathmatch Arena. So I guess the only real ties that we have in terms of characters with the Deathmatch Arena are two new heroes, Betsy and Olympia, who grew up within that region, and Cox, the Deathmatch Arena Fight Master, who seems to be the person who is kind of the ring announcer, if you will, in a way. So that's all we know about the region itself, really.
Yeah.
Lots of pubs and fighting and trade of some sort. It just seems like a midway hub between regions. So
Yeah, it's really interesting. I am looking at this as not. I mean, this could change, right? We with the cards that come out, and there might have been stuff that have come out already, where there could be some real story happening, and there's definitely story happening, and I think it's surrounded, or surrounding Kale. I think Kale is probably going to be the biggest part of this story. I mean, clearly the most unique character we've seen, right? I mean, we've seen Kale before, but this version is way different. But I'm looking at Heavy Hitters and the Deathmatch Arena. This is a set that is filling out the cultural lore of Wraith rather than giving us a specific thing, right? Because I think this Deathmatch Arena exists all the time, right? It's not like the War of the Monarchs, where this is one event, or it's not like the Uprising in Volcor, where it's one thing. This is something that exists all the time. It's Everfest. It's the brutal version of Everfest. So
that's the comparison I was going to make. It really does feel like Everfest. There's lots of games happening outside of just the matches. It always seems to exist. It doesn't seem to care about what's happening in the current world story, which was very similar to Everfest. Everfest was like, oh, light and shadow and angels and demons are fighting, but over here we're having a little carnival,
yeah.
It feels story-wise almost like a supplemental set in that regard, but it's a main set, which is quite unique. So I'm actually I'm quite happy to see this type of set where it's a break from the main story. It's not all doom and gloom. I mean, there is kind of doom and gloom. People are dying in the arena, but it's for fun,
It's fun. People are making money, and that's all we care about, Kale, as long as we get our coins. But it seems to be pretty removed, or I guess apathetic to the politics and the things happening in the world of Wraith. Now, there is a possibility that changes based on some cards that we see, or it hints at maybe the Deathmatch Arena a few years down the road might be forced to kind of stop their operations because things get a lot out of hand. Do you anticipate that to happen sooner rather than later, or do you think that this will just be Everfest and just be like everything's hokey dory as far as we care about in the Deathmatch Arena?
Yeah, there's just a part of me that says it's not going to be impacted by the story at all, unless there's something that happens to Wraith that's almost like a world reset. I feel like it's always going to exist, just because it's not tied specifically to any one region. Like, this isn't like the Deathmatch Arena is a part of the city of Solana, and if Solana falls, the arena goes. People on Wraith and in Flesh and Blood in general, inside and outside the game, just love to fight. And while there are people that just love to fight, I feel like there's always going to be a Deathmatch Arena. In some form or another. I think if there is anything major that could happen to the arena that stops it, I think it would be restarted just in a different fashion. Like it rise from the ashes, if you will. Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of my thoughts. I don't think it's going to be touched by the effects of the War of the Monarch or anything else going on. I think it's an Everfest situation. So.
I think that you could probably argue that as the War of the Monarchs and, whatever else might be happening in Volcor, etc., or even metrics to a certain extent, right? Because, there's tanks running around metrics, as we saw. As that stuff happens, the inhabitants of those regions want to get out of there, but maybe all they know is fighting, and then it almost all of that happening supports the deathmatch arena in a way. It's like, dude, we're thriving because everything else is in turmoil. People want to escape. People want to have a good time. People are really good at fighting, but they don't want to fight for their country, or they don't want to fight for the other side, or something like that. So they're here, and they're like, oh, well, I'm just going to try to make some money. It's very interesting. Now, we got an interesting cast of characters, I think. And let's start with Kale. I think Kale is the most interesting here. And, we did not know. We knew that Kale was just this kind of angry berserker runt, from Crucible War, just out here with his claws. And now he has one less arm. And there is some story. They gave us a little bit, not a lot of story, but they gave us something. What was that?
Yeah, so Kao has been obviously fighting a lot of things because he's a very angry boy. And he got a little bit too in over his head and fought a beast that fought back and managed to almost kill him. But thankfully he survived. He lost an arm, which is crazy. This is the first time we've really had any sort of character canonically have an injury that is permanent, which is really cool. But after sustaining this injury, he was found by some people who are from the deathmatch arena, who corralled him, kept him in a cage, and was like, "We have a new play toy. This will, make the crowd roar. Let's send out this crazed brute with one arm and a claw on his, wrist, and just see what he does, and hope that the crowd will enjoy it." And KO seems to enjoy the fight, so that's essentially the story of KO. He's just been beaten up, kept alive, and then turned into a caged animal for the entertainment of the crowd. But I don't think KO cares too much.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Will KO care, right? Maybe that should be the title of the video. Will KO care? Because he's enslaved, right? Is captured, is or enslaved or in captivity in some sort, but is being forced to do this. And that happened a lot with, I think, gladiators and stuff like that. I'm not an expert, but they were often in captivity, and that's the reason they were forced to fight. So we have that kind of situation here with KO, who's not in it for anything other than he's forced to be. But the interesting thing here is, design-wise, he loses an arm and is arguably better. Not even arguably, way better than he was. So
he's very good.
Yeah. So I look at that, I'm like, well, I always believe that people, or I guess savages or whatever, these brutes they make the most out of the limited amount of resources they have. In this case, it's the limited amount of arms he has. Yep. So he's learned to basically get more efficient with one arm, because he's like, well, I can't lose the other one. So it's interesting. So tell me why you think Rhinar shows up. Now, this one was controversial. There's no putting, making that lighter, right? Rhinar showing up, super controversial. This hyped up second reveal. It's just old school, old fashioned, intimidate Rhinar. Why is he here, Kale?
I think I'll start this off first by going on a little rant. So I've been a big proprietor of not hiding heroes behind rarity. Mm-hmm. Having majestic heroes has annoyed me for the past couple sets, just because the cards will get pulled. You can buy the cards. They're not going to be scarce per se. However, when you have a new player rock up and they're like, man, I really like the look of this new KO. I want to play him. And everyone's like, oh, none of us here have pulled him. You'll have to go buy him online. Immediately, that's a bit of a roadblock for a new player because convenience is everything when it comes to starting a new hobby. And if you have to go online, do your research, find reputable sellers, find a place that isn't scamming you out of money, and then buy the card, wait for it to arrive, then build the deck. That's a whole lot of junk that newer players don't want to deal with. So I've always been of mind that heroes should just be tokens because they've been tokens before. There's no reason why they can't be tokens again. Make them double-sided so you can have the young and the old. The reprint of Rhinar, I'm actually fine with. I feel like there's two reasons why they did it. One, the original Rhinar's just good. Yeah. No reason to reinvent the wheel, right?
Mm-hmm.
And secondly, I think they were struggling to come up with another brute quick enough to fit into the setting, and they pushed whatever idea they had that Rhinar took the spot of further along. As to why Rhinar is in the deathmatch arena, this is my theory, and it's a very disappointing one. Rhinar is suffering the same way that Katsu did in Outsiders. He is simply there to fill space, no importance to the story, and they've shoehorned him in.
It's interesting.
In Outsiders, Katsu and Benji, they kind of had a reason to be in the pits and to interact with the other heroes from Outsiders, but we never got an explanation. We knew Katsu had some ties to Uzuri. Benji is the protege of Katsu, so it makes sense he's there, but what are they looking for? We never found out. It seemed more like Katsu and Benji were put there to fulfill gameplay purposes, and it really feels like they've done that with Rhinar, and the reason they've given us to, at least at the moment, why Rhinar's at the deathmatch arena is he's just been hunting for better fights. This is... I've felt like... This has kind of made me realize that at the moment, Rhinar's story is very weak.
Mm-hmm.
He is, to me, what a lot of... When I play D&D and I DM, I've had a lot of people come to me with cool characters that have had no reason to stick with the party. And that has been the biggest crux. They could have the coolest backstory ever, but if there's no motivating goal or force pushing them to keep progressing in whatever story it is, the whole story just falls flat. And I really feel like that's happened with Rhinar. Why does Rhinar care about putting himself into these set fights? He was more than happy within the Savage Lands to be left alone. In fact, anytime someone came near him, he killed them. That's what happened with the Solania Knights. He's like, what are you doing in my area? This is my territory. And for him to willingly leave his territory and open it up for some other brutes to come in and steal it from him while he's not there, it just doesn't make sense. So I really hope that they elaborate on some driving force that's pushed Rhinar to get to the deathmatch arena. And I know you've had the theory that Rhinar's there because of KO. I don't know if you want to elaborate on that further, but...
Yeah, I mean, when I saw the art for Assault and Battery, like, I asked myself, well, these brutes definitely showed up at the deathmatch arena in the surrounding town or whatever it is, and they're kind of wreaking havoc. And I was wondering if... I don't know if there's a driving force here where KO is in captivity, the brutes kind of heard that. They're like, yeah, we don't really, like, love each other or whatever, you know, but we're not going to let somebody else use one of us, right? You know, that is degrading to our way of life of savagery and, like, and killing, like, we should be able to kill because we want to kill, not because you want us to kill, right? There could be some kind of pride thing. I feel like they are a very prideful bunch. That's like a theory. And then there's also a theory that maybe, you know, Rhinar has this huge story arc that we haven't seen yet where he is kind of rising to the occasion, right? The Savage Lands are kind of a group of, these brutes who don't have a lot of direction. You see Volcor and Solana, these large kingdoms, metrics, whatever, where the Savage Lands doesn't have that. And perhaps maybe Rhinar, as being kind of the alpha here, kind of realizes, well, if we don't get our shit together, we might end up getting taken over, right? So he kind of bands together the brutes, and it's like, well, we can't let a dangerous weapon in our arsenal like KO be captive here. And then he kind of shows up, and maybe my thought is, especially when I saw Assault and Battery, is like Rhinar and KO are in the fight to distract the rest of what's going on at Deathmatch Arena, and then our goons are going to come in and just basically wreak havoc so that we can, do whatever. That's just a theory here. I think it would be a good step in making the Savage Lands a little bit more relevant in the story, because I think that's our problem right now. Is like the Savage Lands are just a jungle, just savage, and like you pointed out, like Rhinar has this really weak story. And I forget who wrote the article, but there was an article from like a couple years ago. It was like, here's the brute problem. It's the orc problem in a lot of fantasy settings. And I think we'd all like that to move the other way. I mean, there's a huge following for the brutes and the savage. I think it's okay to be savage and like be killers, but like I think you have to give them culture.
Yeah.
And you have to give them, like the pride that I'm talking about. Like they got to be prideful. And perhaps if they're forced to be organized, give them a story arc in which they become the organized force of brutes. Which that's where my head's at. That's where I'm hoping. I do not know if that's where it's going to go, but that would be my speculation. That would be like such a, in my opinion, an elegant way to fix the brute problem that we have.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And we've seen hints of brutish culture before. If you look at cards like Blessing of Savagery, there's like a ritual happening with a bunch of brutes around them. They're organized into a group and they're not straight up killing each other. So, there really seems to be this sort of collective idea of it's us against the world. We have to band together to ensure that we don't die out on our own in the Savage Lands. Because, like, the Savage Lands, everything there's out to kill you. So, being on your own, like Rhinar, it's possible, but it's very difficult. And I really do like that idea that you proposed where maybe Rhinar has brought a lot of these brutes with him to the Deathmatch Arena for one reason or another. That makes a lot of sense. Like he's become renowned enough within the Savage Lands that he has gained respect from the other brutes, and they're like, sure, you can be the alpha. You seem to be possibly a good war leader or war chief of some sort. What do you think we should do? We've been constantly pestered and poked at by these Solanians, and just other people, merchants and researchers coming into the Savage Lands. This is our home. They're invading it. What do we do? And maybe Rhinar's like, all right, I got an idea. Let's go here first, and something evolves from there. So yeah, at the moment the established lore is very two-dimensional or one-dimensional, I guess, for the Savage Lands. But I know that there's a lot there that we're waiting to see. So
yeah, absolutely, and like. We see some hints, like Sand Sketch Plan. You kind of just alluded to it, right? He has strategic acumen, right? And that is important to that potential story that we could see. And then you're right. We do see culture. We see loyalty too, right? In Swing Fist, Think Later, the character in the lore text, the flavor text, the character Thuck is saying, don't mess with my mama or something like that. So there is like loyalty and family, and we see pack hunt, pack call. There's packs. So like it's just a matter of like, can they bring it together to actually be a one coherent like force is where we're at.
Yeah, what after you've sort of explained all that, what's really come to mind is comparisons could be made between the brutes and I don't know if all brutes are called this, but there's like a civilization in the Savage Lands called the Aserai, I believe is what they're called. That's like the race. That might be the official name for the brutes. I see a big comparison between them and the wildlings from, I think they're wildlings from Game of Thrones. Is that what they were called? It's been a long time.
I didn't watch
the
those actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, past in Game of Thrones, quick recap. There's this big ice wall that separates the north of Westeros and what lies beyond. So imagine if like Solana went and put a wall between themselves and the Savage Lands.
Mm-hmm.
What's north of the wall was the wildlings or the wild people, wild folk, whatever they were called. Wild folk, I think. And there's like a very strong comparison between them because they were very savage. They were just like these crazy people that just lived out in the wilderness, but there was organization to them. And in the Game of Thrones story, there comes a time where all these different tribes and warbands come together to form this big force that then attacks the wall. And I could see something very similar happening in the Savage Lands with Rhinar and all the other brutes. So, yeah, there's definitely something there.
I think it's definitely an underexplored trope. You know, I mean, it's kind of a fantasy trope, right? Like we have this like unorganized group, something happens, something forces them to band together. They band together, they overcome the tough thing. I'm a big Lord of the Rings guy. I think of the Ents. They're just like a bunch of tree people that live in the forest, and then like Isengard starts cutting down the trees. They're like, no way, Jose. We're gonna actually like destroy this guy. So
the Lorax.
yeah. They're basically the Lorax. So I don't know. I think there's so much potential here. I think that's the reality of the brute lore. So, but let's talk about the Guardians, right? We got Betsy. Yeah. What's going on? Betsy's just a lot of fun. I think Betsy's a blast.
Big old Betsy. She is a large woman who loves to put her money where her mouth is, and she will beat the snot out of you any chance she gets. So, from what I remember of her lore, there isn't too much that's been shown so far, but she did grow up within the surrounds of the deathmatch arena, which is made evident from the fact that two of the heroes, herself and Olympia, have their own unique border on their hero cards. And for those that don't know, the border on the hero cards indicates the origins of where the character comes from. So, for example, Solana, you'd see like Dorinthia has the Solana border, Bolton does. And then there are also cases like Uzuri, where her young has the Mysteria border, because that's where she was, that's where she grew up. But now, in her adult form, she's in the pits, so she has the pits border. They've got this cool new, like, very Greek, Roman-esque, gladiatorial-looking border, which is really cool. But yeah, Betsy's just this woman that just loves brawling. She seems to really love pubs and taverns, and just causing a ruckus. She just loves fighting, which is a very common theme between many of the heroes in Heavy Hitters. I really love, in her design, the big claw scar that she has across her belly. I want to know what caused that. It's like these subtle bits of storytelling that I really love in a lot of characters in Flesh and Blood. Even though I don't care too much about Guardians in gameplay, or, you know, I think her hero ability is a little bit boring for my taste. I just love these like little hints of story that they dabble in. I mean, she's wearing this like cloak made out of skin of some animal that she's obviously killed herself. So, and I want to know what her weapon is. It's been alluded to as some really big club. So I'd love to see that. But yeah, that's pretty much it. All we know about Betsy. And then the second Guardian that we have is Victor Goldmane. Was that his last name? Goldmane?
Yep, Goldmane. Victor Goldmane.
Yep.
High and
Victor
mighty.
Goldmane. High and mighty. So this is a man that has... It's funny, even though it's not specifically like a central point within the region, we've had many characters and heroes come from the place that Victor comes from, which is the Northern Realms, which is a section of the Solana region outside of the city itself. So that place is based heavily on like noble classes and noble houses. We've seen Bolton come from there. We've seen Levia come from there when she worked for Lady Barthelmot, who was a noble. Lord Sutcliffe, who we are very familiar with, he was a noble from the Northern Realms, and now we've got Victor. So he is a Ponce, as my friend referred to him as when he saw him. He's essentially high and mighty, as his title says. He is that one rich guy that you had to deal with in school that thought he was top shit because he came from money. That's Victor, you know. But not to downplay his skills. He does seem like a very capable warrior. He does actively participate in the deathmatch arena, and the whole story behind him being there is that he has come there to show off his skills. So it seems like he's trying to prove himself to, typically in these cases in real life, he's trying to show off to his parents. So we don't know exactly who his parents are, but he's trying to prove that he is worthy of his probably father's approval, and to show that he is a strong warrior. But he is not afraid of using gold to grease the wheels of the deathmatch arena and get his way. So if he's ever in a losing position, he just has to throw some of Daddy's money at whoever's there, and they'll roll over for him. So yeah, very interesting. But I also like as well that I believe it's his signature weapon, the Miller's Hammer. Is that what it was called?
The grindstone. Miller's grindstone.
Miller's grindstone. I just love the fact that his weapon is named after like something that farmers use, which makes me think that perhaps his family comes from a line of farmers that just got really rich.
Perhaps.
I hope that is his signature weapon. Otherwise, my theory goes out the window. But yeah, I mean, just the fact that weapon also really screams Solana, because Solana is known for its golden fields of wheat. So yeah, that's Victor Goldmane in a nutshell, and both our guardians in a nutshell, really. So
yeah, it's funny that they both. I mean, not both care about gold specifically, but like wagering, and then like also the clashing with him, and he is absolutely. I hate him. I hate Victor Goldman. Like, not even like,
I do too.
I don't even think like I might even enjoy playing him, but like I just like hate looking at him. Like he's like, come on, man. Like, you're not that cool. Like, come on, relax.
Yeah, he's the typical heel wrestler that you would see in like a wrestling show.
Exactly.
Like, you just love to hate him,
Yeah.
and that's good. Like, I'd much rather have a character like him than some other character that I hate. And I hate hating them. Like, I just don't want them to exist. But I feel like there is a spot in Flesh and Blood for a character like Victor, and that's good.
Oh, yeah. And you know what? Like, I kind of love the idea that Rhinar's here to kind of show up Victor Goldmane. Like, Victor looks like a hero that wants to block, and there's something about Intimidate that makes it very hard to block. So I kind of like that there's probably going to be some kind of at least tension between the two, and I think that's really neat. Now, I love hearing that he comes from the Northern Realms, right? Because as a Levia lover, and knowing that's kind of where her origins are from, I would like to do you think there's any kind of relationship, not relationship like family, but like, do you think perhaps his family knew, because she was in she was enslaved at the Lady Barthelmot's house. Mansion, probably a mansion, high society. I mean, they kind of stick together. Do you think that there's some relation there?
Yeah, now that you mentioned that, I believe in Levia's backstory, there was the part where she transformed into her Shadowborn abomination. There was some sort of like noble party or get together or function that Lady Barthelmot was hosting when Levia went berserk and killed everyone. There's a good chance that a Goldmane family member was at that party and got killed by Levia. I don't think necessarily that, at least from what we've seen of Victor, that that would tie into his story. Who knows? Perhaps his father or a mother or some other relative was at that party and got killed, and then he's like, well, now I have to take up the mantle of my household. I have to prove that I'm strong. I go find competition, etc. But yeah, there's definitely got to be some sort of connection between, at the very least, the Barthamots and the Goldmanes and the Sutcliffes. But
Yeah. So it'd be
I'd be
kind of
interested to see.
interesting. Here's just like more speculation. This is the speculation show. But,
Yeah,
he perhaps loses a family member in the Levia massacre, right? That happens. And it speaks to his character as like, well, yeah, I'm going to be well trained to not have the same thing happen to me. But I in no way want to be part of that War of the Monarchs because I've seen what the Shadow
yeah,
can do, right? So that's why he is hanging out at the deathmatch arena where he thinks that he has kind of an advantage with his money and his skills, and he doesn't have to face down a really vicious brute until he runs into KO and Rhinar. So
yeah.
it's I don't know. It's very cool. I mean, there might be a huge part that he plays in all of this. I mean, he's been in a lot of the key art, especially for the organized play and stuff like that. Now, we have two warriors. Olympia, you've hinted at, kind of coming from the moat. I don't know, do we know much more about him? I hate to say it, but he seems on his surface like the most boring hero that we've gotten. I don't want to say that, and I hope that that's wrong, and that he ends up being like just kind of like a badass in a way. Just like, yeah, no, I'm just like a great fighter, and that's just what you got to deal with. But what's your take on Olympia?
Yeah, so from what we know so far, he grew up in essentially poverty. Let me actually go back and just double check this. I don't want to get my facts wrong. He was a beggar, that's right, surviving on scraps in the moat of the deathmatch arena. However, destiny had other plans for him as he would rise from the littered streets to become the undefeated deathmatch champion. He's the current champion.
Oh, okay.
So that's quite impressive. I could see his backstory being one where he had nothing to lose and either willingly or, maybe it was taken forcefully, as is a lot of the time that things that happen in these sort of arenas, taken into the deathmatch arena and showed a brilliant skill with fighting and wielding weapons, and it became his calling. He had nothing else left for him. I mean, it even says on his page that he pretty much just lives and breathes the deathmatch arena. It is his entire life, which really speaks to the fact that he probably had almost nothing. I wouldn't be surprised if it's revealed that he was an orphan.
Mm-hmm.
Possibly parents died or whatnot. Maybe they were previous deathmatch arena participants trying to earn a living so that way they wouldn't be poor, and then they ended up dying and sort of left him alone. But yeah, on the surface he definitely does seem a bit one-dimensional, but I think LSS has some big plans with him. I feel like the fact that he is the undefeated deathmatch arena champion is a big story point, and I hope they explore that more.
Absolutely. And to be fair, I mean, looking at his specialization up the ante, he could very well be one of the better gameplay heroes from this set. And all of a sudden that could easily warp our opinion of him and kind of our outlook on Olympia. So it's really interesting. I like that almost he's so different from that environment, right? He does not care about the gambling. He does not care about the drinking. He doesn't care about anything other than I was poor and begging, and I found that this is the only way that I can get out of that, right? Kind of like a true underdog story to the point where, he's the champ. So it could be very cool. Now, on the flip side, we do have the insanely cool story of Kasai. One of the best stories. We kind of sandwiched KO and Kasai in between all the other heroes. I think KO, obviously, really cool. Kasai, recruiting an army.
Yeah.
What's the deal with that?
Yeah, so previous to Heavy Hitters, what we had last seen was Kasai's story was one where her father was a general in Volcor, but was then slain by competition. Off the top of my head, I feel like it might have been a lieutenant within Kasai's father's army, or it could have just been a rival general. I don't quite remember. But the death of her father meant that she basically had to flee Volcor. And ever since that day, she vowed that she would get her revenge. And she spent a lot of her time traveling the deserts of Volcor with a group called the Centauri, which are a group of nomads that basically go around, very nomadic. They travel. They will come into fights with other people to scavenge resources. I wouldn't be surprised if they also attacked things like trade caravans to get supplies. Very ragtag group. It has been 10 years since she first became a sellsword with the Centauri, which was actually quite surprising when I read that. We've canonically gotten like a timeline as to how long it's been since these things have happened. Over the course of these 10 years, she has banded a lot of the Centauri together. And she's at the point where she's like, I need more to raise an army to go back to Volcor and kill the man that killed my father. So she's come to the deathmatch arena after all these years of improving her skills with her sabers and fighting. And she's out to make money and then use that money to then hire a mercenary army to then march back and get her revenge, which is a very cool story. She is ruthless. She does not care what anyone thinks. She's there simply to make money, and that's pretty much it. Like, if she'll do whatever it takes to get the money, if she has to become the deathmatch arena champion herself to do it, she'll do that. She doesn't care about titles. She just wants the money. Which normally when people want money in stories, it's very like greedy and selfish, but she kind of has this more of like it's a little bit altruistic of a motivation. She doesn't want the money to live lavishly. She wants it so she can reach a goal that in the end doesn't involve money per se. She just needs the money as a means to an end. It's a tool for her, basically. And I really like the way that plays into her playstyle with her new hero card and the Raise an Army card, where you can destroy gold to get allies, which is really cool. Yeah, definitely one of the more interesting stories coming out of Heavy Hitters. And it was established very early on, so that kind of helps it. So
yeah, it's so cool, and I'm happy for all the Kasai fans out there, right? Because they always wondered, are we going to see the adult version? Like, Kasai was always one of the cooler young heroes that we had gotten. Same with Kale, and I'm glad that we got 2 upgraded versions with adult versions as well. And the fact that she has a very clear storyline, even through her cards, is so cool. And I'm interested to see where she plays out in the whole deathmatch arena vibe, right? Because we're seeing cards for Warrior in the spoilers, like, cares if you wagered. She doesn't really care about wagering so much, right? She cares about yellows and reds and stuff like that. So it will be interesting to see what cards are like so clearly meant for her. And I don't know. Yeah. I'm just I'm stoked, man. This is like a setup for like a really cool set. Not a lot of story, but so much that we can kind of create in our minds, as you've seen.
There's pieces there.
Yeah.
Pieces to the puzzle, and we're waiting for LSS to give us a couple more pieces so we can properly figure it out. But
please.
There's some cool stuff.
So what's your take here before we move to some listener questions? Do we see a new champion take over Olympia, or are we going to be surprised in any way?
Because this is a set that I really feel like isn't connected so much with the main story. I feel like I have this bad feeling that we're not going to get any end game for what's happening at the arena. Like, all 6 of these participants, I have this bad feeling that none of it's going to clash and there's not going to be like a winner per se.
Mm-hmm.
I could see a world in where Kasai actually becomes friends to an extent with Olympia and was like, hey, here's my goal. I don't care about your title. You can keep the title. Help me make more money, and maybe Olympia could see, like, have some sympathy for the fact that he grew up poor and didn't really have a home, and can understand Kasai's plight, and then tries to help her with some of his winnings or something. I could see something like that happening. It feels like the only connection to a major story we're going to get is through Kasai, with the fact that she's going to take an army back to Volcor, which is currently in the midst of an uprising, and the streets are filled with lava, and the Emperor's dead, yada yada. But yeah, I don't know. Obviously, people have had theories that there's going to be like a demi-hero version of like Rhinar that's like the new champion, but I feel like Rhinar just doesn't care about being champion that much. I don't know, his motivations are very unknown, but I don't think it's that. So
yeah, I mean, I think you got to save the demi-hero stuff for large story reveals. We saw it with Levi, right? She has to get redeemed or consumed or whatever. And then we saw it with Teklo. He becomes Iron Man. Oh, he becomes Ultron. And then if it were to be Rhinar, I kind of going back to what we talked about, the potential for a Brute story, I would like to see something like General Rhinar or something like that. Like Supreme Chieftain Rhinar or something.
Yeah,
something like that, where it's like, it just makes sense for that story. Like, if we're gonna get that, it would be really neat. I don't know, I'd like to see that, but it's been fun, man. But we do have some listener questions, if you don't mind answering some.
Yeah, let's go. I love the listener questions. So
as always, you can submit them on the Buds Discord and the listener questions channel. For anybody who's not in the Buds Discord, check it out. First question, we're going to have some questions here that perhaps we did answers, but we're still going to read them anyway. First comes from Sigma, who asks, some people are pointing to the Savage Lands unknown interest point as the arena. I think that's inside the jungle and too dangerous for regular peasants to assist. Do you believe it's there too? My guess is middle point between kind of what you had said, Solana, Metrics Pits, Volcor. What do you think?
Yeah, I've theorized that it's somewhere around the Badlands, which is between Savage Lands and Volcor, but a bit more north. In the tiny bit of information that they gave about Rhinar being there, it says that he travels north to the Deathmatch Arena, which, if you look at the map of Wraith, if he traveled north, it seems like he would have had to have been more central or northern Savage Lands. I don't know, it's really weird that they said that, but I could definitely see a world in where he was more so in the Badlands, which is, if you go north, then it would be where the Deathmatch Arena is. But they've been really vague on it. I hope they clarify it.
Yeah.
But yeah, as said, it's going to be somewhere like smack bang in the middle. So.
Yeah, and I think there was mention of the Badlands with Kale, right, too, in his
Yeah,
story.
he roams the Badlands because there's more like volcanic dragon-like beasts that sort of roam that area. So that's where he's been fighting up until the point where he lost his arm.
Rest in peace.
So, yep, rest in peace, KO's arm.
Rest in, I don't know, there's probably a joke there. And I'm not going to come up with it. Greg asks, a.k.a. Dark Prentice asks, I'm a bit low on the whole Rhinar wandered into the deathmatch for a new challenge, as we discussed. Do you think this is actually why Rhinar is there, or am I just hitting the copium too hard? It seems like that's what they told us, although I think we gave you a lot of possibilities as to why he's there, and hopefully we're more right than LSS.
I hope my theory on the fact that he's just there in the same way Katsu and Benji was in Outsiders is completely wrong. I don't want that to be the case, because, I mean, the game does come first over lore, but, you know, if that is the case where they've just kind of shoehorned him in, they could have done a better job, but, I mean, we'll have to wait and see. It's you know, don't want to put the cart before the horse, so.
Yeah, and there is a very strong argument for the gameplay, right? Like, we're going to have Guardians that, like, Rhinar is the anti-blockout hero, and in a lot of ways that could be a very healthy thing to add to a limited environment for sure. So, We'll see. Crix has asked, do you think any of the merchant heroes have a place in this setting? And if so, do you think they'd be incorporated lore-wise? Also, why am I already willing to die for Kasai? I feel like there's a simple explanation there. I think you need to do some deep soul searching, Crix, and figure that one out for yourself.
As for the existing merchant heroes, I don't think there's a reason why any of them would be there. Janus, what you need, seems more than content being in Aria at the Everfest Carnival, where his life is not in imminent danger. As for Kavdane, he's busy doing things in the pits. He's right at home, doing criminal stuff and skinning people. Trader of skins. And Squiz and Floof, I don't know how canonical they are, but I don't think Santa Claus would want to go to the deathmatch arena, because that's basically what Squizzy and Floof is. As for just merchants in general, there's definitely room for them. Wherever money is traded hands, you can bet your bottom dollar that one of the hands is the greasy hands of a merchant. You know, they flock to money like thieves flock to coin purses, you know.
Amen.
So, yeah. As for Kasai, I don't know. There's this whole... I mean, obviously, she's just really cool, but, yeah, maybe you need to figure out your taste in women.
yeah. Like, I get it.
I ain't judging, though, man. So, you know, I'm on board with it.
Yeah, a little danger never hurt anybody. Well, maybe it did, but...
Yep.
Will from the Table Pit, who actually just made this really cool video, if anybody didn't catch it, where he made a 3,000 card deck box. Please check it out.
I still need to watch that, yeah.
It's wild. It is very wild. Go check that out, Table Pit on YouTube. How did Kale lose his arm, and did I miss this? When did it happen? This was all in caps, by the way. It got chomped off by an animal. I think that's...
Yeah. So I believe, if I were to make a guess as to what cut it off, I think if you go and look at the artwork for Ready to Roll, he is fighting some sort of fiery dragon beast, which I think, if I have a quick look in the Savage Lands page here, it might be named. Well, they don't have it in here. I think it might be in the lore book that they've actually explained some of the Savage Land creatures. That's my best guess. I mean, it's really the only creature that we've seen him fighting, and it was a specialization card. So, you know, I don't think someone of KO's abilities could have necessarily easily killed a creature like that. So it makes sense that it probably ripped off one of his arms. But as some other people have said, I would love it if he had a KO specialization weapon that was his other arm, and he beat people with it. Yeah, just like I think there was a scene in Toy Story like that where they used Buzz's arm and just started smacking people. Yeah, that'd be really cool. But yeah, he lost an arm.
It's very
cool.
Yeah. Next question comes from Stoop Kid, who luckily jumped off his stoop to ask this question. Aside from the set characters, Rhinar, Kale, etc., how do you think the heavy hitters lore will impact other events such as the Monarch War and what's going on in Metrics?
Yeah, we did kind of touch on that. I feel like it's not going to make any difference.
Mm-hmm.
Which kind of sucks, but it's also kind of a good thing. It's good to have a reprieve from the main story. Yeah, the biggest impact it could have is Kasai's story and her returning to Volcor with a whole bunch of mercenaries to possibly try to take over Volcor. We'll see. But yeah, unfortunately, I don't think there'll be much to do with the War of the Monarchs unless we suddenly start getting some demons fighting in the deathmatch arena, along with some angels.
I mean, the card's out at this point, but I saw a sneak peek of Alex from Tales of Wraith.
Yeah.
Had the art in his card has some creature. We don't know. It looks like a giant bug, so it's probably just like something from that
Slithering Shadowpede?
Yeah. Oh, God.
Nasty surprise.
Do not tempt me with a good time. That would be awesome. But you never know. Kasai could be a big one there. If they do anything with the brutes, sure. Victor Goldman could have a a piece in the Solanian story at some
Maybe
point.
he's scared of the demons and he's like, "Oh, I'm going on a noble quest. Bye," and is
Yeah.
secretly, running away.
Yeah,
So
he
we
might
don't
get
know.
forced to go back to Solana if he gets like really embarrassed at the deathmatch arena. So like,
Yeah,
you never know.
his home could be under invasion. I mean, there's lots of cultists and shenanigans going on in the Northern Realms. So
Absolutely. And then finally, Capolo asked if all the heroes from Heavy Hitters went to the carnival and did a game of Punching Machine, who would have the highest score and gain the title of heaviest hitter of Heavy Hitters?
initially, I just wanted to say Betsy.
Yeah.
I think a woman of her size, it takes strength to lug someone of that size around, and she definitely doesn't seem like the type of larger woman that's impeded by her large size. If anything, it's almost like a tool that she can use to like absorb hits. I feel like she would throw a real mean punch. Either that or I want to say Olympia.
Okay.
He's just jacked.
Yeah. He's a
So I
specimen.
mean, of all the people that I've seen, like you see clips of people doing the punching game and whatnot. It's always the people that apply their strength in the right way that really rack up the highest score. I think Rhinar and like KO could do really well, but I feel like they would just come swinging at it in the wrong way that not all of their power would be directed into the machine. And I feel like Olympia would be really precise with his punch and would get a high score.
Yeah, my initial thought was Rhinar, then I realized like most of Rhinar's power comes from his intimidation, right? He's scary. He's very scary. So like,
and he rips more than punches. I would say.
yeah, exactly. So like I feel like Rhinar could probably put up a good score, but Betsy, in my opinion, probably uses her own like inertia to kind of really just like probably just took a running start and just maybe broke the whole machine, to be honest. It would be very fun to watch, but that's going to do it, buddy. We've done another lore episode. This one was like a lot of fun. I'm excited to see where we go next. I think I have an idea where we're going to go next. I don't know. I have this like weird feeling, but
really,
yeah, I got this like, I don't know, something in my tummy. We'll see. We'll see. I'll tell you after. We'll see if I was right.
Sure.
But it should be very cool. Now, thank you again. It's pretty late for you, so I appreciate you, hopping on the phones here and
anytime, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Please plug all your stuff. Thank you for helping out with the spoiler video. Thank you for coming on, and
yeah, thank you. As always, DeadSummerArt on all socials. Some of you might have noticed I've done like a little refresh of my branding a bit. To help kick off the new year with some new goodness and motivation. So I'm dead set focused this year. So expect a lot of content coming. I'm going to be focusing really hard, making some real cool stuff. The next video I've got lined up is part of my Regions of Wraith series, which I had like an initial intro video to, which was just an overview of the world. The next video coming out will be about Solana. So I'll be diving into everything about Solana, every little bit of juicy lore that I found. I'll be talking about it. It'll be locations, characters, myths and legends, everything you can think of. One-stop shop for Solana. That will be coming out very soon. That's pretty much it. So,
awesome. Well, yeah, please check it all out. All of you know at this point how great DeadSummerArt is and everything Kale's doing over there. But please go check it out. Check out anything new that's coming out, and look forward to the next lore episode that we have going. You can continue to find me on Twitter at freshbudspod. Like, comment, subscribe on the YouTube, Buzz Discord, Patreon soon, and finally, food.
Yes.
What are you eating lately?
I normally stick to pretty standard food for like a long time. I have like a schedule almost. So I don't normally eat different things, but Christmas did happen recently.
Mm-hmm.
So, Christmas, you always have good food. I had some of my all-time favorites made by my mother. Potato bake is one of my all-time favorites. You can't go wrong with potato bake. Potatoes are just like the best vegetable. You can use it for anything.
Yeah.
You can have it healthy. You can have it unhealthy, anywhere in between. Season it, bake it, roast it, fry it, whatever you want. So potatoes are great. And then this might seem a bit weird. My mum makes a layered salad, which has like cucumber, egg, cheese, tomato, lettuce, peas, bacon, mayonnaise, and you get a big scoop of that on your plate and mix it up, and it's just like creamy salad. I don't know. It's really weird to have that be something that I really enjoy, but yeah, when she first made it and I first tried it, it just took me by surprise. And yeah, I didn't think I would love a salad as much as I do, but yeah,
Well,
layered salad.
mayonnaise, love it or hate it, mayonnaise can really up the ante on a lot of things. And
Yep.
here in the States, a lot of macaroni salad, tuna salad. Some people
Yep.
eat ham salad. Not a huge fan of that one for whatever reason. Chicken salad's pretty good, but
Yep.
I would probably eat that. I like egg salad, so like that sounds like just like a amped up egg salad. So
Yeah, it kind of is. Yeah. What did you have for Christmas? You do anything crazy for meals or?
no, I mean, so Christmas Eve is bigger with my family, and I have a huge family. Like I got like 30 first cousins, so
Far out.
yeah, my dad was one of 10 kids, so like we all go to one of the houses, and it's usually just like appetizers and like just like potluck kind of stuff. But
Yeah,
we made
nice.
something new this year where I don't know if have you ever heard of, like the pepperoncinis, those like pickled peppers, typically like served with like a lot of Greek food or Italian food. They're a little spicy, but like more tangy. So basically what we did was we chopped off the top of them and we emptied them out, and then we stuffed them with like mozzarella, cream cheese, and Parmesan, and then wrapped them in prosciutto. So it was like an Italian or Mediterranean jalapeno popper in a way, and they actually really slapped. We made them for like 3 parties.
Nice.
So it was very. I ate most of them, to be honest, but
That sounds amazing. I have Italian heritage, so I love like pasta and Italian food and whatnot. But I also love peppers, so
yeah.
and like pickled, anything like not anything pickled, but I love pickles in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, that just sounds like best of everything. Yeah, I need to make some of those.
Yeah, that was excellent. So, hey, listen, I mean, all this pickle talk has made me realize we can't have Charmer on this week, but I'm sure we'll get to him at some point. Thank you all. Enjoy Heavy Hitters. Enjoy the Queenstown stream. I'm sure it's probably amazing. Actually, I know it's amazing. We've been watching it for the past couple of days.
Yep.
And like, comment, subscribe. Check out the spoiler video. Check out Kale's stuff. And goodbye.